This is your Sound Off Extra review for WWE Survivor Series 2017. Here on the official YouTube channel for the Solomonster Sounds Off podcast, I am the Solomonster. The 31st edition of Survivor Series is in the books, emanating from Houston, Texas. A thumbs up show with 3 excellent matches, and unfortunately a main event that, for all of its star power and for all the high hopes I had for it, did not deliver and ended the show, frankly, on a very sour note. I think that main event, at least the second half of that main event, really shit the bed. But not enough for me to call this a thumbs down pay-per-view, because there was way more good stuff than bad stuff on this show, which is a step up from past Survivor Series shows. It did at least feel like an important show. They made the most of the whole Raw versus SmackDown dynamic, even though there really was nothing on the line other than bragging rights. So I'm not sure beyond tonight that any of this is going to matter. There's no real implications or repercussions, I don't think, coming out of the show. I guess we'll find out on TV this week. But if I am comparing the two shows, because that's what everybody likes to do, and I've already gotten some tweets about it, this was all about NXT TakeOver. If I had to, match the two shows head to head, I wasn't sure if Survivor Series was going to be able to top that show last night. It did not. I still think TakeOver wins the weekend. But you know what? We got 2 pretty good shows. Actually, one outstanding show and one pretty damn good show, I thought, still, from WWE tonight. So, hard to complain. The poll is up on my Twitter page at Solomonster. Already over 900 votes, but I'm going to wait until the end of this review, and I'll check in and give an update on what you guys think in terms of thumbs up, thumbs down. There's a lot to digest. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as I can. There's no need to sort of belabor the point. You guys, I'm sure, all saw the event tonight, so I'm going to try to just kind of break it down to the most important stuff here. I did get a clean sweep with my predictions. 8-0, not counting the 2 matches they added at the last minute on the pre-show, which I guess means that it was a predictable show. But predictable doesn't necessarily mean bad. I can't tell you how many tweets I got tonight during the show telling me, there were a few matches where I said, man, that was a great match. And people would say, yeah, but that's so predictable. It's like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, look, I like it when they kind of throw things out of left field too, as long as it leads to something and it makes sense. But predictable does not mean bad. Sometimes predictable is actually the right way to go. And I appreciate them more for it, and not sort of swerving us for the sake of swerving us. So let's start with the kickoff show here, because they added 2 matches here this afternoon, one of which was a singles match pitting Elias against Matt Hardy. And Elias got the win with the drift away. The right guy won, but it's so sad. It's sad to think about how much buzz Matt Hardy had around him a year ago. I know that it was a character that was being played out on a television show that was watched by a very small number of people, but it was a character that, frankly, he was also taking around with him on the indie scene as well, not just in Impact. And it struck a chord. People were entertained by it largely. He had like I said, a buzz around him. He was one of the hottest acts in all of wrestling this time last year. And you skip ahead to WrestleMania this year. Him and Jeff make their big triumphant return to WWE after all these years away. That huge reaction that they got in Orlando at Mania this year. And fast forward to now, Jeff is gone. He's out hurt. And Matt is just Matt Hardy. He's just a background player on TV. And I can't even lay all of the blame on WWE, because their hands were tied as far as the broken gimmick is concerned. I'm sure they would have tried with it. I don't know if they would have screwed it up. Knowing their track record, they probably would have, because they would have wanted to put their spin on it, and that would have screwed the whole thing up. But there really wasn't a lot that they could do. It doesn't make it any less sad to see. Matt himself tweeted during the pay-per-view after his match. He said, something has to change. And I agree 100%. What that is, I don't know. I was hoping that by now he would have come up with a plan B and pitched some kind of idea that was kind of similar to what he was doing in Impact with the broken stuff, and maybe a little bit different. Maybe he has pitched ideas and they've just fallen on deaf ears. I've heard guys complain about that before who have worked in WWE. I don't know. But I agree with Matt. Something has to change. We had Enzo Amore. His match got bumped to the kickoff show. He defended the Cruiserweight title against Kalisto. retained his championship. He pulled Kalisto headfirst into the exposed turnbuckle, hit his finish for the win. Very basic stuff. Not quite the days when guys like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrero were defending the Cruiserweight title in WCW, so not very exciting. It was just sort of there. And then we had Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, who were in fact added to the card, but they were added to the card against Breezango, which was very weird when you consider that these two were involved in the main event of the last SmackDown pay-per-view, Hell in a Cell, and now here they are the very next show on the kickoff. But Kevin Owens got the win over Fandango with the pop-up powerbomb, so at least they got the win. If they would have lost, I would have been really worried. But that was the kickoff, and that led to the pay-per-view. Now, for the pay-per-view, they had a 5-man announce team. Now, you guys know my thoughts about these 3-man booths, and sometimes they'll even do 4 men. I'm not a fan of it. I think less is more. So they decided to go in the complete opposite direction and actually expand the announce team. And they made it 5. So it was Michael Cole, Tom Phillips, Byron Saxton, Corey Graves, and Booker T. And this was quite the frustrating night listening to commentary. I thought Cole and Phillips, largely were fine. Corey Graves, I'm a fan of his. But there was no need to have 5 announcers at the same time. I kind of like the way they did it back in the day when a brand split was really a brand split, but they would have the joint pay-per-views. And so you'd have, the Raw team calling some matches, the Raw matches, the SmackDown team calling some of the SmackDown matches. I understand here that it was a mix, but I think it would have been better had they just gone back and forth and maybe only the main event, bring everybody in for that. But in any event, I mention it only because I got a lot of complaints during the show talking about how awful the commentary was. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the 5-man booth. Pay-per-view opened with The Shield against The New Day, 6-man tag team action, 5 years after they debuted at Survivor Series, interfering in the main event. The Shield is opening the show. Roman Reigns, first time he tagged into the match, he tagged in to wrestle Big E. Immediately was showered by chants of "You still suck" from the crowd in Houston, although the crowd did warm to Roman as the match went on. It's hard not to cheer for the Shield. These guys work so well together. I thought the match was great. I thought it was all action. Big E and Kofi hit a double midnight hour on Rollins and Ambrose. Big E had both of them up, one on each shoulder. Reigns broke up the pin. Things broke down after that into a melee, as Vince McMahon might say. Kofi Kingston came off the top. Roman ducked. And when Kofi turned around, he ate a spear. Rollins hit the Kingslayer to Kofi. Dirty deeds from Dean Ambrose. And they both hoisted Kofi up for Roman Reigns to hit the triple power bomb from the middle rope for the win. So Raw goes up 1-0 right off the bat over SmackDown. I thought this match delivered. This was one of the matches, one of the 3 or 4 matches on the show that I was really looking forward to. I thought could steal the show. I don't think it stole the show, but I thought it was a hot way to open the show. It was exactly what I expected it to be. I was shocked by the number of people I saw online who said that it was underwhelming and disappointing. I guess it's a subjective thing. I'm not really sure what people were expecting. They had time. I thought it was all action. I thought it was great. Then we had the 5-on-5 women's elimination match, Team Raw, captained by Alicia Fox, along with Sasha Banks, Bayley, Nia Jax, and Asuka, against Team SmackDown, captained by Becky Lynch, Natalya, Carmella, Tamina, and Naomi. This match was a bit of a mess in spots, but it was the right outcome. They did the shock elimination this year. Now, they've done this before. I remember them doing it with John Cena in the Elimination Chamber, where he got eliminated one year, I think by Edge, right off the bat. They do this from time to time. The shock elimination this year was Becky. She was the team captain for SmackDown. She started the match with Alicia Fox, but Bayley tagged in, immediately rolled up Becky for the pin. So Becky was gone in the first minute or so of the match, which was quite surprising and disappointing, especially when you consider how much time Tamina got in this match, although I guess she served her purpose with Asuka. She was a victim later in the match, but I would have preferred to see more Becky and less Tamina. Bayley was pinned next by Tamina, as a matter of fact, with the Superfly Splash, so Bayley didn't last very long in this match either. We got a face-off between Tamina and Nia Jax. Family, as the announcers pointed out. First time we're seeing these two family members face off one-on-one. And since they both have that Samoan blood coursing through their veins, they both went for headbutts because of course they would. Nia ended up getting knocked out of the ring. Tamina gave her a splash off the ring steps. Got back into the ring just in time to beat the 10 count. Nia was not so lucky. She got counted out. That's their way of protecting her. That's fine. I mean, that's just what they do. I mean, they did it with The Undertaker. Undertaker debuted at Survivor Series in 1990. His very first match, he didn't win. He got counted out. That's just what they do. Now, when I said this match was a bit of a mess, what I was really thinking of was the little bit of interaction we had in the ring midway with Alicia Fox and Naomi, which was it was very bad. Put it that way. It was very bad. And it looked like they botched the fall, too. It looked like Naomi was trying to transition from a pin attempt into a submission. Was supposed to beat Alicia that way, but referee John Cone counted the 3. I guess her shoulders were down a little too long, and the referees are instructed to count it like a shoot. He counted 3. Naomi was going for the submission anyway, and he just waved it off and said, nope, get the hell out of the ring. So that was the end of Alicia Fox. That was weird. Sasha Banks, probably seeing this, said, I better get in here right away. She got in, immediately put Naomi in the bank statement. Naomi tapped out. So now it's 2-on-3. Sasha Banks and Asuka representing Raw against Natty, Tamina, and who's the other one here? I've lost track. Tamina? Did I mention her? I don't know. I said this match was a mess. Carmella, that's who it was. Asuka tagged in. She kicked Carmella hard in the face. That was the end of Carmella, so now it was down to 2-on-2. Asuka, by the way, was super over here in Houston, which was cool to see. Fans were really into her. Natty eliminated Sasha with the sharpshooter, which left Asuka all by herself. 2-on-1 up against Natty and Tamina. Tamina missed another Superfly splash. Asuka locked her in a cross armbar for the submission, so it came down 1-on-1. Natty and Asuka. Natty went for the sharpshooter. Asuka turned it into a knee bar for a big pop. Natty got out of that, but Asuka locked in the Asuka lock for the submission, and Asuka is the sole survivor for Team Raw, as it should be. I said in my predictions earlier today, Asuka has to be the sole survivor. If I was booking this thing, she would be the sole survivor. It would come down to her and Becky. That's what I was kind of hoping for, but, this was still fine. The end result is still the same. They did the right thing. I thought the match was good. Like I said, very messy in spots, but the outcome was what it should have been. We had the Intercontinental Champion, The Miz, representing Raw, up against United States Champion Baron Corbin, representing SmackDown. This was the match I had the least amount of interest in going into the show. I thought it was okay. Nothing wrong with it. It was just hard to get excited about it. What's there to be excited about? You got two heels against each other. People, it's not like they cheered one person more than the other. They just sort of, they popped for a few big moves, and that was about it. Corbin laid out Curtis Axel outside the ring. Then he brought Bo Dallas inside, gave him the end of days. Miz worked over Corbin's knee. He was giving him the yes kicks when Corbin dropped him with the end of days and scored the first win of the night for Team SmackDown. And then he cut a little promo after the match. Miz goes, when my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut. It was a play off that, which I thought was clever. And then he turned to the fans and said, basically he shut all their mouths too. See, trash-talking Corbin is actually really good. Like, when you give him these little promos to do, I think that's really where the guy shines. We saw signs of that back when talking smack was still a thing. That was the first glimpse of him just speaking in a natural environment and not being overly scripted, where I said, hey, this guy's actually not a bad talker when he's talking shit about people. So I dig it, in small doses. I think he's good. We had the Raw Tag Team Champions, the Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro, against SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Usos. Very good match. I was not sold on this match the first half. It was good, but it was missing something. And then, just as I was thinking that, literally it just started picking up. And the last several minutes were very, very good. The finish had the Usos executing a double super kick on Cesaro, then doing the same to Sheamus. Jimmy Uso hit this giant dive out of the ring, and in doing so, in midair, he tagged Jay, And when Jimmy landed outside, his head smacked the front of the announce desk. It's just a sickening thud. So Jay went up top, hit the big splash, and got the win for his team. There was actually one pretty cool spot earlier in the match where Jey Uso gave Sheamus this Samoan drop. He was sort of in the position for the old LOD move, and he ended up falling backwards and giving him a Samoan drop, which was cool. The Usos, they're a lot of fun to watch, and I think you'd be hard-pressed, frankly, to find a better tag team, not just in the company, but I think anywhere in wrestling. I mean, you could point to some great tag teams that there are, but when I think of who right now is the best, consistently best tag team in wrestling, I think it's the Usos. Raw Women's Champion Alexa Bliss against the new SmackDown Women's Champion Charlotte. Charlotte won with the figure 8. Long match. I don't know exactly what the final time was, but it definitely felt long. I thought the match was okay. I was kind of bored during parts of it. Not for nothing. Not that the effort wasn't there. I thought they were doing everything they could, but I wasn't really feeling it. Story was Alexa working over Charlotte's ribs. So Alexa got a lot more offense than I think you would expect here up against Charlotte. Charlotte did hit natural selection at one point on Alexa, and Alexa kicked out. Now, I'm not sure when. I'm almost positive that there have been people who have kicked out of that move before, but if they have, it's been a while. They usually protect that move, even though she uses the figure 8 largely as her finish. So that was kind of surprising to see Alexa kick out of that. Charlotte went for a moonsault, but she missed. Which again, she had the injured ribs, so that didn't feel too good for her. But in the end, it was Charlotte, as I said, with the figure 8 getting the submission win over Alexa. And not really a big surprise there. I didn't see them beating Charlotte here in this match. Nor did I see, by the way, some of you guys thought maybe Carmella would come out and cash in after the match. I didn't see that happening just because, if for no other reason, they have that Starrcade show coming up next Saturday in Greensboro, and Charlotte is in the main event. She's in a cage match in the main event against Natalya for the championship, and so I could not see them taking the title off of her before then. Now, at this point, the announcers mentioned that in order for Raw to win what? I don't know. I guess, again, bragging rights. But in order for Raw to get the most number of wins here on this show, they had to then win both of the final 2 matches. The next match being the Universal Champion Brock Lesnar against the WWE Champion AJ Styles. This is a match that I was probably looking forward to this match the most of all the matches on the show. I was really excited for this match. I thought if anybody can bring Brock Lesnar to a truly exciting match, because Brock's very hit or miss. You can get a Brock Lesnar match that just is nothing but suplexes, and 7 minutes later it's all over. Or you can get a Brock Lesnar match that has a little bit of length to it and a little more effort, and maybe the other guy gets more offense than the usual Brock Lesnar opponent does, and it could actually be really good. And I thought that in this match, I was hoping that, with AJ Styles in there, we were going to get that kind of match, and we did. But I didn't think that we were going to after the first few minutes. I was very worried those first few minutes. And they got a long time, too. They got about 15 minutes, which for a Brock Lesnar match is actually a very long time. That is longer than most Lesnar matches. In the opening minutes, Brock absolutely murdered AJ Styles. First part of the match was booked like a real fight. And in a real fight, Brock Lesnar is going to throw AJ Styles around like a small child and murder him with body blows. And that's exactly what happened. I was genuinely worried for AJ. I mean, obviously AJ bumps around like a madman. He's one of the best in the company. But the way he was landing on his neck and his shoulder and the way that Brock was just throwing this guy around, he threw him out of the ring at one point, just flung him over the top rope, just as reckless as you possibly can do it. I was genuinely worried that this guy was gonna injure himself, and they can ill afford for AJ Styles to go down with an injury that's going to keep him out for months at a time. So I was worried for AJ because he was getting absolutely demolished in there. But what also worried me, because I thought they might be doing what they did with Lesnar and John Cena at SummerSlam in 2014. Now, I admit, that match was fun to watch. I actually enjoyed watching Lesnar destroy John Cena back then. But a big part of that is John Cena never should have beaten Brock in Brock's first match back in 2012. So the way I see it, that was payback for that, as far as I'm concerned. But I was hoping for a match not along those lines. I was hoping for a match more along the lines of Punk and Lesnar from SummerSlam the year before that, in 2013. And that's closer to what we ended up getting here. The first half was a fight. The second half turned into a pro wrestling match, with AJ making the heroic underdog comeback. Lesnar was selling for him. AJ hit the phenomenal forearm over the top rope on the floor. And then he hit another one off the ring steps. He hit a third one in the ring for a near fall. Before that, he locked Brock in the calf crusher, which is smart, because looking at Lesnar, if the man has one weakness, it's his calves. So he locked him in that. The place came unglued, thinking Brock might actually tap out to AJ. Now think about that. These people bought into the idea that Brock Lesnar would tap out to AJ Styles. That was funny. AJ hit a picture-perfect 450 splash off the ropes. AJ went for another phenomenal forearm. Brock caught him in midair on his shoulders, was a little unsteady. I'm hoping Brock was just selling the knee from the calf crusher, because and if he was, then he's one of the best sellers in the entire company, because from that moment right up until they faded out after the match, he was selling it like he, dislocated his kneecap or suffered some kind of legit injury, and I hope that's not the case. Although, hey, if ever there was anything positive about Brock taking months off in between matches, then he should have plenty of time to heal up. But he caught him on his shoulders, hit the F5 for the win. The most protected finish in the business, at least until WrestleMania next year. I think you know where I'm going with that. But this was the definition of David versus Goliath. It's the match that I always wanted to see between Brock and Daniel Bryan when Bryan was hot on the main roster, and we never got to see it. But that's what this was. This was the definition of David versus Goliath, the monster against the little guy, against the underdog, and I think it worked. Lesnar, like I said before, it looked like he hurt his knee, hopefully just selling the injury. He was limping very badly. I thought it was from the spot where AJ shoved him into the ring steps outside, and it looked like Brock's knees went right into the steps, and they even had to mute he was cursing, so they had to mute. I thought maybe he actually did ding his knee into the side of the steps, but again, it could have just been selling from the effects of the calf crusher. Hopefully that's all it was. But this match was what I was hoping it would be. Very worried in the opening minutes, but it picked up. They had time. I think AJ comes out of this, even though he got beat, AJ doesn't come out of this looking any less. If anything, he looks even better, because he gave Brock more of a run than any other opponent that Brock has had in a very long time. And I know, Braun Strowman and him had the match back in No Mercy. I didn't think that match really was very good. And, it's not like they went in there and made Strowman look weak necessarily, but I thought AJ was made to look every bit as strong as Braun, if not more, here in this match against Lesnar. And so, as far as I'm concerned, this match met my expectations. I was very happy with it. And the streak is over, by the way. Brock Lesnar notches his first win ever at Survivor Series after going 0 for 3 in his career on this show before this. He finally picks up the W. And that evened the score 3-3 going into the main event. One other thing I really enjoyed about this, by the way, I was convinced, and they certainly made you think that Jinder Mahal was going to come out and stick his nose in this match. Jinder was at the show. They showed him earlier in the night confronting AJ backstage. They really wanted you to think that Jinder was coming out, and he didn't. This was a clean, straight-up match. There was no interference. There were no shenanigans. There was no bullshit. It was just one-on-one, and I appreciate that. I think Jinder coming out and interfering would have been predictable, but it would have brought the match down a few notches. And so I like the fact that they did not do that. So, thumbs up. So like I said, that evened to 3-3 going into the main event, which was the Men's Survivor Series elimination match. Team Raw, led by Kurt Angle, along with Triple H, Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, and Braun Strowman, against Team SmackDown, led by Shane McMahon with John Cena, Randy Orton, Bobby Roode, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Or shall I call him Shin, as the announcers did about 35 times here on this show. Was I the only one who got annoyed by this? Where to begin here with this match? There was so much that happened. It was a long match. Again, I don't know what the final time on it was, but they had plenty of time. I mean, when this match started, there was a lot of time left in the show. This thing had to go I'm guessing this went every bit of 35 to 45 minutes in total, including entrances. I think the Survivor Series Raw vs. SmackDown match last year went about 50, so I don't think this went quite that long. But it was a weird thing because I was looking forward to the match. I was not bothered by the fact that they put some of the quote-unquote older guys in this match, all the older names, Triple H and Kurt Angle, I think people still like the novelty of seeing him wrestle since he hasn't wrestled that much. So I don't think people are bothered by the fact that Kurt was in this match, but Triple H and John Cena and Randy Orton, right? I mean, it's tiresome. It's 2017 for fuck's sake. But I didn't mind it. I liked the fact that they loaded the match with star power. They mixed in some of the newer names like Bobby Roode and Finn Balor and Samoa Joe and Braun Strowman. It was a nice mix of top names. And I didn't know what they were going to do because there's a certain degree of ego involved. In a Survivor Series match like this, it's elimination format. You expect them to put some weaker names in there so maybe they can eat the eliminations at the beginning. I thought that would be Jason Jordan's role had he stayed in the match. But when you have a match with all top guys, basically, you wonder who's going to go first, right? Who's going to be eliminated in the early going? I mean, there's no easy answer to that question. So I was intrigued going into it. I was enjoying certain parts of the match the first half, but like I said earlier, it sort of went off a cliff in the second half. There was some confusing stuff in there. There was some stuff that the crowd even really wasn't all that into. It was kind of quiet. And I don't know if that was just had to do with the length of the show, because this was a very long show, which I think is one of the advantages that NXT is always going to have over the main roster. The main roster just loads these shows up 4 or 5 hours, and sometimes by the end you're just exhausted, right? You never really have that issue with NXT. It doesn't overstay its welcome. So it has sort of an unfair advantage in that way. If you dragged out NXT for 3 or 4 hours, I don't think people would look at it quite as fondly as they do, no matter how good the matches are. So I think the main roster will always be handicapped when you compare the two. But the second half of the match has brought the match down, and the finish and everything, which I'll get into here in a second, I didn't like it. I hated it. And I really was very disappointed when this was over, because I was genuinely looking forward to this. We had Braun Strowman at the beginning. He pinned Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura was the first guy to be eliminated here in this match. It had to be somebody. I know some people are going to be upset about that. That doesn't bother me as much. It had to be somebody. Look, it's big names all over this match. Somebody had to eat the fall, and it was Nakamura. They had Nakamura work Triple H a little bit. He worked with Finn Balor. People went nuts. People went nuts when Nakamura tagged in and he went one-on-one with Finn Balor. I don't know why. I don't know what it was about. I mean, I guess they worked together in NXT. Actually, I think they only had one match in NXT, and it was on TV. I don't know if it was just the idea that you had people in the crowd who remembered, their time in Japan. I don't know what it was, but people were really amped up to see the two of them in the ring together. But Nakamura was eliminated with the running power slam by Strowman. We did get our Triple H Bobby Roode face-to-face encounter. I know a lot of people were joking about that, posting all the Spider-Man memes online, as I did tonight. I joined in on that because it's true. It's like looking in a mirror between these two guys. And when Bobby Roode still had the long hair, when he was in Beer Money, and when he first split from James Storm, he still had the longer hair in TNA. People were making the comparisons even then. He always reminded people, myself included, of Triple H, just in terms of his appearance, the moves, one of which being the spine buster, and I laughed when I saw both of them hit dueling spine busters on each other here in this match. It was like they were playing into the whole idea of, hey, these two guys are very much alike. Unfortunately, Strowman pinned Canadian H with the running power slam as well. So Nakamura was out first, Bobby Roode was out second. And just running through some of the other eliminations here, we did get to see Samoa Joe and John Cena, which I think Michael Cole on commentary said it's one of these matches you always dreamed of seeing. You never thought you would see this match before. Except for all those people who saw it on the house shows a couple months ago. But no, that was cool. And I think, I forgot who it was on commentary, even alluded to their history going back to California. Back when they both came up under Rick Bassman, UPW. You could probably even find footage online. They came up together. They were training together. They were in the same class together. So it was cool to see the two of them together. It wasn't so cool to see John Cena pin him with an attitude adjustment. I wasn't exactly enthusiastic about that, although at least it took two of them. He didn't beat Joe with one. It took two attitude adjustments to pin Samoa Joe, but he did pin Samoa Joe. Randy Orton pinned Finn Balor with the RKO. And it was at this point that I'm looking at this going, man, Cena beats Joe with an AA. Orton beats Balor with an RKO. John Cena and Randy Orton. What fucking year is this? And that's when I started to get very agitated. Because now it was like they were almost falling back to their old ways. You know, it was like, ugh, this is not what I want to see. This is not what I was hoping for here. And it literally came down to John Cena, Randy Orton, and Shane McMahon as the representatives of Team SmackDown. Strowman pinned Orton with the running power slam. It came down to Triple H, Braun Strowman, and Kurt Angle. And it came down to Shane McMahon all by his lonesome on the other side. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And a lot of people figured they might get involved. And when I did my predictions earlier, I said they're going to get involved. I thought they would cost Team SmackDown the match. I guess you can kind of say they did, but they really didn't. I mean, they came out, they attacked Shane. Shane fought them off. So much for them making an impact here. I mean, they came out, they attacked Shane. Shane grabbed a chair. He beat their asses with a chair. He literally chased Sami Zayn to the back with a steel chair. So you really can't say that they cost SmackDown the match. It was Triple H. It was Triple H who really put dealt the death blow, put the nail in the coffin for Shane with what he did at the end of the match. But Owens and Zayn did interfere. So if you figured that they were going to come back out, you were correct. And I'm sure that will probably lead to something going forward. I don't know if it's going to be another match. Maybe Shane against Zayn. They could do that on TV or something. I don't know. But we got to the later part of the match. We got to see Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle tagged in. He got to wrestle John Cena. That was also cool. They mentioned John Cena when he first debuted on TV. It was Kurt Angle who he wrestled. The Ruthless Aggression speech and then the match they had. So to see the two of them back in the ring together, and I'm guessing they probably have not wrestled each other since 2003. I'm guessing it's been every bit of 12 or 13 years, I'm sure, 14 maybe, since those two have been in the ring together. So that was cool. And Kurt got to pin John Cena. Kurt Angle actually got to pin John Cena. He pinned him with I think it was the second Angle Slam that he gave him. So that was cool to see. But Kurt had the ankle lock on Shane McMahon, moving forward again. Kurt had the ankle lock on Shane. We got to see Angle and Shane mix it up. All these old matches and these old rivalries, bringing back all these memories. Kurt and Shane in 2001. Kurt Angle, by the way, I haven't really mentioned about his performance yet. I thought Kurt did fine. To the people who say he looked slow, he looked old, because he is. He is slow and old. You know, he's, 48 now? 47? With all the injuries that he's had, it's a miracle the guy even got cleared. Which is kind of weird, that we have Kurt Angle being medically cleared here to wrestle, and Daniel Bryan is not. And, I have to say, there was a point in the match where when it came down to Shane was all by himself, right? He was outgunned 3-1. And they were milking this, and they were just biding time. And I thought, okay, somebody is coming out. And I thought, oh my God, Daniel Bryan's music is going to hit. He's going to come out as the big surprise. Everybody is going to go nuts. It's going to be this great moment, right? And I'm somebody who is convinced, that they're not going to let him wrestle because they're not messing around with the concussion stuff. The concussion lawsuit is ongoing. If they kept him out of the ring, if he had any other kind of injury, I would say, you know what? There's a pretty good chance that they'll bring him back. He's a big name. People want to see him come back. They can make money off him. But when it comes to the brain and the concussions and stuff, I'm smart enough to know that they're not going to bring him back. But in that moment, I kind of got caught up in the moment, and I'm thinking, we had a segment earlier in the show with Brian and Stephanie. We know Brian was there. There have been a lot of little teases about, doing something with Brian. There's been some tension tease between Brian and Shane. When it came down to Shane and the other three, I'm like, somebody's coming out here. And I, for a minute, was convinced that it was going to be Daniel Bryan. I really thought in that moment that he's coming out. And I was disappointed. And I have nobody to blame for that but myself. WWE didn't do anything. It's not like they teased that he was going to come out and wrestle. Okay, it's not their fault. I allowed myself to kind of get caught up in the moment, but I really genuinely thought at that point in the match, he was coming out. He was going to add himself to the match. He was going to back up Shane, and it was going to be this great moment. And of course, it didn't happen. But Angle had Shane in the ankle lock. He held that ankle lock on for a long time. And all of a sudden, Triple H decides to come in the ring and he gives Kurt Angle a pedigree. And then he puts Shane McMahon on top of Kurt Angle. And so Kurt Angle is eliminated. And Braun Strowman is on the apron. He's looking at this. He's got this look on his face like he can't believe what he's seeing. He's confused. We're all confused. The announcers at least tried to make sense of it. I guess the story is that Triple H wanted all the attention for himself. He wanted to be the one to win the match. So he eliminated Kurt, and then he pretended that he was actually helping Shane. He was concerned for Shane. Oh, are you okay? And as soon as Shane got to his feet, he booted Shane. He gave Shane the pedigree, and he got the pin, which actually fits his MO. Triple H's ego is second to none, and you would think, well, this guy probably would want to pick up the win in this match, and he did. And that's the other thing that pissed me off about this, is that not only did we have all of the quote-unquote newer guys get wiped out early in the match, except Braun. Braun was there in the end. He is a newer face. But again, there was something about all those guys being eliminated and then seeing John Cena and Shane and Orton that really kind of pissed me off. And then the cherry on top was, of all the people, of all the ways for the match to end, of all the people to win the match, it was Triple H. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm over this. You know, liking the fact that all the big names are in there and actually being excited for the match. And I didn't mind Triple H taking Jason Jordan's spot. Jason Jordan had no business being in this match. I didn't mind all of that. Watching Triple H here win the match after 45 minutes or whatever it was, that really pissed me off. And you know, at that point, you know, what are you going to do? You're just disappointed. You're confused. There was so much potential in this match. They could have gone a whole bunch of different ways with it. I'm not a fan of the way that they did go. Braun's out there. He's looking very confused, and Triple H is like, hey, we won the match. And he's raising Braun's hand, and Braun grabs him by the throat, throws him into the corner. He threatens him, and Braun lets him go. He lets him live. And when he turns around, Triple H goes to attack him. Braun picks him up, gives him the running power slam. He actually gave him a second power slam. And Braun Strowman was the focal point when this thing was over, which is cool. That's great. I'd rather he be the focal point than Triple H. What worries me is that it almost looked like they were planting the seed for a Triple H Braun Strowman match at some point, and that is a match I just have no interest in seeing at all. I have no interest in seeing Braun Strowman feud with or wrestle Triple H. It may help Braun. I mean, if they're going to do something where it's him against the Authority, and my skin crawls just even saying that word, because I guess we already kind of have the Authority back with Triple H and Stephanie being on TV, but I'm so done with this Authority bullshit that the worst thing that they could possibly do is resurrect that, so I hope to God that's not the direction they go in. They want to do something with Triple H and Kurt, a power struggle or something, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Triple H and Braun, for the love of God, I hope that's not the direction that they go in with this. It did look like they were clearly setting up something with Triple H and Angle, I assume for WrestleMania. That's got to lead somewhere. So let them do that and just get away from the whole Triple H Braun stuff. But when this was over, again, I was disappointed more than anything else. It left a bad taste in my mouth when this match was over. Not enough to bring the show down to a thumbs down level, though. I'm still giving the show a thumbs up. I thought AJ and Brock was the best match on the show. I thought it delivered. I thought the Usos and the Bar had a very good match. I thought the Shield and the New Day had an excellent match to open the show. There was nothing else on the show that I thought was bad. There were a bunch of matches that were just there that I didn't really care for, but they were okay. It was filler. I thought some of them ended up being filler matches. But 3 excellent matches, I can't give this show a thumbs down. And let me bring up the poll results right now. We'll take a look at where things stand. So we're already at 1,500 votes. This poll hasn't been up for that long. 1,500 votes so far, 70% thumbs up, 30% thumbs down. So you guys are in agreement. You guys overall seem to give the show a very positive, I mean, 70%, that's pretty damn positive. So I'm not alone in thinking that this was overall a very good show. A lot of you also seem to agree with me on that main event. Just a big disappointment. But that's your Survivor Series review for 2017. We'll see what the fallout is on TV this week. Going forward, now that Raw versus SmackDown is over, we don't have invasions and we don't have a mixing of the brands, so they're going to have to create exciting storylines and content for us that's brand specific, which is hit or miss with this company. I guess SmackDown has the next pay-per-view. That's Clash of Champions. I don't think Raw has a pay-per-view until February. It's going to be a while. Although, again, we're going to see a mixing again going into the Royal Rumble. So I love it when they say that Survivor Series is the one time a year you get to see Raw and SmackDown in direct competition. And they say this, of course, coming off of the AJ Styles Finn Balor match that we had at TLC. I understand that was extenuating circumstances, but still, it's kind of funny that they sort of ignore that happened. And now we're heading into the Rumble, and we'll get to see Raw vs. SmackDown all over again. Check out the DVD extra I have up on this channel. I reviewed the WWE Unreleased Matches DVD. It's matches from 1986 to 1995. 45 matches on this 3-disc DVD set. A lot of good stuff, a lot of not so good stuff. I had a lot of fun reviewing it. If you're on the fence about buying it, if you have no interest in buying it, but you just want to hear about it, that's up on the YouTube channel. Click on over. I uploaded it a few days ago. Give that a listen and a like if you would be so kind. Give this video a like if you'd be kind enough to do that. Leave some comments. I want to hear what you guys thought of the show. Do you agree with me? Am I the only one who felt that this main event disappointed and was underwhelming? What'd you think of AJ and Brock? I want to hear your thoughts. Post down below. You can hear the full episodes of the podcast every Sunday on the Solomonster.com. Coming up, the next episode is number 523. That will be next Sunday. Thank you, as always, for the support. I will be back very soon with a brand new extra here on YouTube. So until then, be well, stay safe, leave your feedback below, and I'll see you back here again real soon. Take care, guys.